Hello my friends, I hope you had a fantastic week so far. This week I'm back with a brand new conversation to help you grow. I'm back with Mateo. Now Mateo is over on the other side of the pond. We're going to talk about how video can increase the likelihood that you're seen by the right people at the right time, and how actually video could be the solution if you have the right mindset to be able to continue your growth, continue for you to be able to move forward regardless of what happens with the economy. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you enjoy the show. Thank you so much for coming back. And I'm now going to hand over to past me. I'll see you soon.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Mateo. I'm the CEO and founder of Elvira Media. Super excited to be on the podcast today. Similar to Carlton, I'm also a media entrepreneur, super passionate about video marketing, video production. I'm based here in Los Angeles, California, the media capital of the world. So excited to be on this podcast, to collaborate with other filmmakers, storytellers, and people who are looking to tap into the power of video. So Carlton, thanks so much, man.
Thanks so much for coming on the show and actually articulating the value which you're going to give to both of our audiences today. But I think it's one of those things, right? Because as videographers, as people who do video, and we had a brief conversation in our pre-show about this, about like practicing what you preach. I think it's really important and something that I've always sort of seen as an alarm bell for video people, but anyone, right? If you're a marketing agency, you shouldn't have the issue of where do I get more clients from, right? You shouldn't have a quiet time, really, right? Because you should kind of shift between you do your marketing to get more clients and attract more work, and then serving your clients, right? But why? Because we're both very dominant on social. We're both very posting content, articulating ourselves, saying, hey, look, what's up? This is video. This is why it's a good idea. Why is that a good idea, right? Because there's a lot of people right now who, for probably legitimate reason, are concerned about every pound that they spend or every dollar they spend or, any money that's going out of the business, right? Why video, right? Why should someone consider this dominant approach on social media as a way to market, right? Because there's so many ways you can market. There's so many things you can do that aren't necessarily 100%, right? There's nothing, in my experience, there's nothing 100% that's going to be like, if you do this, you get work 100% of the time.
100%. Yeah, like you said, like every business needs to constantly generate new leads, new opportunities, and how you do that is everything, right? We look at metrics like customer acquisition costs, right? Like how much does it actually cost you to acquire a customer after all said expenses, right? So if you look at hiring a sales rep or going to a trade show, right? Like, is there ROI in there? Like, is the cost to bring those people on board, does it less than what you could bring with profit, right? And so if we look at video marketing, if it's something that you can build that's sustainable, that you could find a partner, that's how you can ultimately create demand, in my opinion, right? Where all of our attention is on these social media platforms. We consume news, information, our friends, our personal life. And if you could position your business or your brand on these platforms repeatedly, consistently offering value, you are almost attracting the type of customers that you want to work with. And that, to me, has been the most successful business development lead generation strategy over any cold call, over any cold email. And it's very personable, right? Like video here, you could see us, you can get a sense of who we are. And so video is king. And I think it's the most effective and efficient way to get customers in today's digital world.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I obviously agree. We're both very biased, right? So I like to be the kind of counter swing to that.
Yeah.
But it's also how we've connected traditionally before digitized media anyway, right? You would talk to someone, you would make eye contact, read their body language, understand kind of who they are, how what their morals are, etc. And then you would maybe decide to buy either from them or help them become a client of yours, right? But so many people, they get so concerned about this idea and getting over these fear barriers, right? I'm sure you've had this conversation with clients. I've had this conversation with clients, and it's one of those things where business owners are so busy, right? I think part of them doesn't want to take on another outside of the comfort zone thing that I need to spend more time and energy to build a skill on, right? Is there a simple way that you found? Is there a way which people can be like, yeah, if you do this and then this, you can do video easier? Because that's, I think, the first barrier, right? Because everyone has a smartphone, right? So, and I'm sure we'll talk about like the differences between pro and doing it yourself. But I think getting more people into the video sphere is always the first step, right? Because otherwise you have no yardstick, right? You've got nowhere to start. But how do you help your clients? How would you suggest to the audience if they're looking to start doing video? How can they start doing that? Because it can be very intimidating. Maybe not for us because we're seasoned professionals, we've been doing it a long time. But that's not fair because we're coming from a very large place of privilege because we have that skill set already, right? So how
Sure.
would you recommend people actually start, let's get the concept of talking to a lens like this?
Yeah, no, those are great points, Carlton. I think as a CEO, like we're both CEOs and we both have our strength as CEOs, right? And so I think it's important for any business owner to really look into themselves and be like, what do I do for this business that moves the needle forward? And most of the time, it's not the video production, it's not the video editing, it's not the ideation, but that stuff is what can really help you get in front of more customers, more potential leads. And so for me as a business owner, I actually don't edit my own videos because I've determined that me actually spending time doing it myself has a negative ROI on me going out there and getting new clients. I have found that the biggest thing that moves the needle for me is going on podcasts like this, talking to new customers, posting on LinkedIn. And so when you're able to get that value out of video, but not actually spending all your time doing the production and the editing, you'll be actually surprised to see like how much more you can grow and what you could do with your time more. And so I think it's just a reality that not everyone is a seasoned professional with video, but that doesn't mean you can't reap the rewards and the benefits of video.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think it's a really interesting concept that you've kind of alluded to there, which is the idea of basically outsourcing from the get-go, right? Which is bringing in people who are arguably more skilled or are more skilled than you at this thing, right? And not trying to do it yourself, right? Because a lot of the conversations I have with clients sometimes is, well, why should we hire you? We could do it ourselves. We all have mobile phones. But there's obviously going to be a quality disparity there, arguably, but also from my point of view, at least as a video marketer, what you're paying for is my skill and my experience and the years that it took me to get good at video marketing. It's got nothing to do with what camera I shoot on or how I shoot necessarily, right? That's the shiny piece that we sell at the end of the road, right? But the actual ability of what we sell is the cultivation of reputation, personal brand, and business branding across an extended period of time across social media channels to allow a business to have that visibility, right? To be able to say to their customers, hey, by the way, we're still around. Hey, by the way, look, we did this really cool thing. Or, hey, look, we just opened this new thing. Or we just opened this new location. But this opens up obviously a question, right? Which is, how would you help a client come up with ideas? Because there's the traditional, let's go down your frequently asked questions. Cool, fantastic. Let's make a promotional video. Sure. But if a client comes to you, is it solely regarding their actual goal and what they want to achieve with the campaign, with the video marketing, would you say? Or is there kind of like, these are some ideas that always work, or this is a good starting point to create that idea bank and that content bank? Because as I say, like, we can sit here and we can talk about a lot of those things because we are seasoned professionals in basically the idea of content creation as a job and as a career.
Yep.
And as creating ideas out of thin air, right? Something that and I'm sure you do as well, is create and document a lot of what happens in our businesses to then use as documentary content down the line, right? But that's a approach, sure. But most people aren't going to start there because that's a step that maybe not a lot are comfortable with, but also they may not know the facilitation to be able to do that. So what's a starting point? What's a really good, like, you can do this video, it's a really good starting point. Have you seen it with clients? Have you seen it with people you speak to that's like, hey, look, you can do these kind of easy wins and you can kind of, let's look at these videos because across the board on average, they're probably going to be a good idea for
100%. It's a great question. And I think a lot of the times people, like you said, people don't really understand video as much as you and I. And it's not to say that you don't know, but clients come to me and they're like, oh, I want to get footage of this. And you're just like, okay, well, what's the goal with the footage? Like, are you trying to create a video? Right. So they kind of think it very top of funnel, like very broad, like, oh, I just need clips. And so I think it's our job to really pull more information and get a sense of like, well, what were you hoping to do with this footage, or what's the goal? Like, why do you want to capture this? And that's obviously where our expertise comes in. But for a brand new business, right, I think customer testimonials are a really good place to start. Like if you're a software company or you're a service provider, there's something to be said about social proof, right? Like getting your actual customers to talk about how great you are, or getting your customers to talk about the ROI and what it's like to work with you. Because it's really easy for us to talk about how great our businesses are. But when you have your actual customers talking about it and their experience with you, and that's something that is relatively, I don't want to say easy, but as long as you have a good business and happy customers and you could coordinate a time to film with some of them, I mean, that's content that I think every business could use, whether you're a software company, to a plumber, to a videographer, any service provider, any business, they need to tell the stories of their customers. And so a customer testimonial video is something that could be widely used across like several industries. So that's like something that we try to lean in as a lot of these testimonial videos.
It's a really important point, because I think sometimes, especially as video professionals or as professionals in general, right, we can sit here and we can say, I'm really good at what I do and I'm amazing and da da da. But of course, we're going to be biased, right? Because we have a financial, even if it's unconscious bias, we're still biased because we have a financial transaction in our mind at some point down the line of, I'm good at this thing, that's why you should hire me. Right? But what social proof does is it actually takes that ability and scales it, because it allows you to say, hey, look, I actually am, because even these people over here also think I'm good, right? And these people, and these people, and these people, right? And that's why social proof is so important. But it does open up a question, which is, how do you create a value piece for the people who you're getting testimonials from, right? Because something which I've been seeing done, and it may be the answer to the question, right, is we'll do a promo for your business, as in the person you're getting social proof for, in exchange for a interview talking about how or just weave it into your productions. Like, how do you go about getting social proof? Because it's not necessarily something that I think people would naturally think about, especially people who are maybe new to the production game or new to the video game. They wouldn't necessarily think, oh yeah, let me ask my client who's paying for the time that I'm stood here filming them to now talk about me.
100%. Yeah, I think it varies on business to business, but like I said, you want to tap into like your happiest customers, like repeat customers, customers who love working with you, customers you have a really good relationship. And, you know, any good business has those customers, those champions, those customers that rave about you. And, you know, those are the people that would most likely be willing to participate in it. But also those are the people that you want to like highlight to the world. You want that kind of customer to just speak how much they love working with you. And when you can get that excitement on camera, those emotions, right? You can't really capture that on a PDF testimonial, one page, or you can't capture that on a picture, right? And so we come back to the value of like video, right? It's you're creating a story and you're able to capture all that emotion, right? So when you do have a super passionate customer, leverage them to help you get more of those.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important word you mentioned there, which was leverage, right? Which a lot of businesses I don't think utilize as well as they probably should, right? Something which I try to do a lot of, or I suggest to my clients, is always leverage what you have, right? And one of the things that content or video specifically allows you to do is scale a message, right? So that's leveraging your time, right? So you create this piece once. So I'm going to create this podcast with you once, but then I can leverage it across creating clips out of it, short form clips out of it, then also posting it online so it stays online for a longer period of time, right? Yes, we're investing in this hour, and maybe I'm investing the hour and a half that it's going to take me to cut together and make it look polished and blah, 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 blah. But after that time, it also can potentially generate me AdSense revenue, and there's lots of other things that you can do once you have a podcast style show, right? You can build an audience and cultivate this trust, which is excluding everything I just talked about lead gen, right? And we just talked about lead gen, which is the core reason why most people should have a personality driven show. It doesn't have to be a podcast. It should be a personality driven show that showcases you, right? The byproduct or the other benefits that can come from having a show like this is building a YouTube channel, is having those social media clips infinitely, etc. But that also opens up another question, right? About why should someone work with a professional over working doing it themselves, right? Because I've had conversations where, especially during a recession or during when times are hard, as I alluded to earlier, or harder than they were, right? The phone's not ringing as much, etc. There's not as much work happening. Why should a business still invest in video production, a video professional, etc., to do this when their argument might be, I have a phone, I can buy a microphone, I can use my webcam.
100%. I mean, the question comes down to like kind of what I alluded to earlier is like, what is your time worth as a CEO? And if you spend a full day trying to learn or trying to do it yourself, what did you lose in that full day of you trying to record your videos, trying to edit your videos? And so when you work with a professional, you tap into all of the years of experience and sets and failures and everything that we've gone through, and you're able to tap into that and just boom, accelerate your business, right? And on top of that too, like these social media apps are changing daily, like Threads, Instagram Threads just came out, a couple of weeks ago. And so you want to have a partner that has their pulse on all of these different things, whether it's like vertical video, Instagram Threads, or just being expert in a field, right? Like here at Elvira Media, we just work with education and ed tech companies, and we just help them with video content marketing. And so whether you're a plumber or whatnot, there are experts in video in your specific industry. And so when you tap into them, you're saving time, but you're growing faster because you're able to leverage their expertise in both video and the industry to take you to areas and places that you've never even gone before. And that's how you can grow. That's the whole point, right? We're trying to grow our business to do things that are scalable that I don't have to necessarily learn or do. And so that's the value that I see for business owners partnering with professionals.
Fantastic. And I think, I mean, it opens up an interesting question regarding like a lot of things, but mostly pricing, because I think the way I look at it is like, okay, let's say you're going to pay this person this amount of money. Cool, fantastic. But how many deals or how much money could you now, with this access of time, these access of resources, actually go and hunt for, go and prospect, go and generate? Now you've got this availability, right? So you alluded to a day, right? Or spending a day creating content. If you can schedule that day in such a way where you can just sit down, deliver the camera, bang, 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 done, and maybe it's half a day or etc., surely to a business, and this is where the value pricing model comes in more than the time-based model, surely actually something that takes a professional maybe 4 or 5 hours to do in comparison to you tinkering for a day and maybe, if you're lucky, coming up with one video, a professional could probably come in, set up, half an hour, get maybe 5, 6, 7 long-ish videos that then of course can be cut down in smaller chunks, blah 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 blah. But like that for me is the value, right? Because it's that speed, it's that articulation, it's saying, right, yeah, actually, have you thought about saying it this way? Actually, have you thought about this energy? Actually, why don't we do a walking shot, etc.? And it's that different perspective as well. It's not just necessarily, but that comes from that experience, right, which you alluded to. But it does open up a question of how does someone, I guess in some ways, start creating content consistently and then get to the point where it's going to return them money, right? Because we talked about it. There's a reason why so many people do it. But there is also a question that so many business owners have, which is like this kind of like seesaw point, right? So you invest. And at what level or what point are they going to see that return? Because it's a belief system to an extent. It's a belief that it's going to work. But also it's a long-term reputational game, of course. But there needs to be that tipping point at some point, right?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest battle that I face, or I'm sure you face too, is what we're doing isn't necessarily sales or lead gen. And of course, that's the goal of what we're trying to accomplish through our videos, but we're doing it in a very long-term strategy and focus. And so, especially if you're a company or business that is very new to social media, it's going to take a little while. And so it's important to recognize that this is a very long-term focus and strategy. And a lot of the rewards come from just doing this consistently for years, as you and I could probably attest to. it took us a few years for us to build a repeatable process for us to post video content. But now we have an engine that feeds us messages on LinkedIn every day or feeds us emails. And so it's taken a couple of years to get to this point. And I would imagine a lot of CEOs probably would have pulled the plug a long time ago if this was their business. And so I think it's just important to recognize that this is an alternative strategy to sales to get you sales. But this is something that will far outweigh what sales could do for you when you reach that level of putting in the work for a couple of years. And at the end of the day, it's about branding. It's about creating an emotional connection with your customers. And you can't really do that in a cold call or a cold email. It comes with constantly seeing your face, constantly seeing your content on the feed, positioning yourself as an expert in your field. And that is the strategy that we're trying to develop here for our clients, is creating a demand generation and inbound lead flow, which, these opportunities convert at a higher percentage. They move through the funnel faster. And so compare it to some of your other channels that you're using for customer acquisition and just compare it over time. And so it's such a long game. And I wish I had a more clear answer for you, but it's the long game. It's a marathon,
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when I really, 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 really understood this was like, why does the Coca-Colas of the world still advertise? Right? Why are they still using commercials? Why are they still using video? Why are they still using, like, they're some of the biggest brands in the world. You would think if it didn't work and there wasn't a reason behind it, they would literally not spend the money they spend on it, right? Now, they can average you spend from like 10,000 a month to 100,000 a month, depending on if it's Christmas, basically, is the reality. Have they got a truck to drive around or not in Coca-Cola's case? But I think for me, it does open up an interesting strategy and an interesting conversation, which is actually something which I strive to say to clients, which is video should be a part of an overarching plan that isn't the be all and end all if it doesn't serve you. It should be your brand builder long term. It should be the thing that generates you that sustainability, that ability to stay visible and know that those opportunities will appear. But the reality that I think sometimes we forget, especially as video people in general, right, as business owners, because we're so busy and we have lots of fires to put out, etc., is your client actually needs to get to the point of wanting video. Your client actually needs to get to the point of needing a plumber. Your client actually needs to get to the point of going to a restaurant before they can make the decision that has already been made subconsciously in their head through video, right? Because it's not, the first step is let's win over trust, let's win over, so yes, we know that what you do and we know you're the expert in it and you know you're incredible at it, but do you actually want to buy the thing yet? Do you have a use case for the thing yet? The answer might be no, right? And if it is no, then it's not going to appear. But when it does, and people who've done content for a long time will tell you, they'll get random messages out of the blue saying, hey, such and such, I've followed your content for 6 months, a year, 18 months, whatever, would love to work with you, love what you do. And this is the difference between serving the demand in the business world, serving the demand in the market, and creating the demand yourself. And this is the difference between the two. And this is why I think people who have been around the block a couple of times or are very dominant on social aren't as worried about the economic challenges that we may be facing across the board, right? Now, we're talking about two completely different economies, right? I'm in the UK, you're in the US, right? So actually, the economies could be in very different states. But the same is true because of what we do. Because we're not serving the demand necessarily, because we're creating it out of thin air, right? Because we're creating the brand perception, the brand demand, right? But how did you personally, firstly, do you agree with that? If you do, how did you create that mindset and cultivate that abundance mindset of like, actually, if I keep going, what I'm doing will work eventually. Because it's quite 100%. A ballsy thing to do, especially when you maybe don't have a pipeline that that's full, right? That you're like, yes, there's loads of work coming in. You've got to have some stern. You've got to have a backbone. You've got to be like, yeah, I know this will work, so let's keep going.
100%. I mean, to your point, like, how many people are actually in the market for a plumber? You won't know until you actually face that problem. And the person who's going to get that lead or that business is the plumber who marketed to that person the most recent. And when there's a need, they're going to call them. And the same is applicable for any other business. A very small percentage of any of your customers are ready to buy right now. And that's fine. But if you could build a relationship with them or consistently show up on their feed, they think of you when they're ready to go. And so that is what creates demand. And I think that's tremendous when you don't have to go out there and hunt for opportunities, that if this is your strategy and focus, the opportunities come to you. People start messaging you, people start emailing you, and you don't have to hunt anymore. I mean, I'm sure you can, and you can definitely do outbound, but there's just something beautiful when you as a business owner have people coming to you and people messaging you. That is, I think, way easier to do or to get customers that way than going out cold calling, knocking. I mean, not to say that, you don't need to start off that way, but when I started this agency 3 years ago, my inbox was dead. No one would email me. And so I really committed to this strategy 3 years ago, posting every single day on LinkedIn. And today I get people from all over the world messaging me, collaborating on podcasts. We were able to connect on here. We've been good friends on here, right? And so there's just something beautiful about just being on these channels and the people you can meet and the business opportunities that come from you just showing up online at the end of the day. So
no, I completely agree. I think also, though, if you are going to do that kind of hunting approach, what happens if what we call people like in your world, right? People who consume your content, know your face, etc. I had it literally last week. I sent a lady who had consumed my content for a while, right? Nice. And I just sent her a message saying, "Hey, look, I love what you're doing." She said she made a post about like doing a refurb on her restaurant, blah 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 blah, and I was just like, "Hey, look, we would love to showcase it. These are how we do pricing." Da, da, da. I just came for a meeting this afternoon with her, sold the deal, job done. Right? So it can actually do what you're describing as well, which is fantastic when it happens, because it gives you that passive level of lead gen that just happens passively because you exist. But also, even if you are hunting, it actually makes the hunting process and that trust building process and that relationship building process a lot quicker. Right? So instead of it taking months like it would maybe do with networking, if you're willing to, what I call, eat shit for a period of time, which is do all of these other things as well, hunt, do some cold calling, go to networking and create content consistently and have a podcast and run a YouTube channel and do this and do that, and you're willing to do all these things simultaneously, what will end up happening is people will realize, Jesus Christ, this guy, this girl is actually genuinely serious about what they're doing and they're working very, very hard. And what most people, when they see that, will say and do is they'll go, we're going to go with the guy and girl who works very, very hard, because they expect results. And everyone in business wants results. It's not always return on investment in regards to money. It might actually just be, this person is reliable. This person creates good quality of work at a very quick rate, and it doesn't surface the quality, right? But also, we can ask of them and we can have consistency with them. Right? And I think it's about what you show when you create your own content is, I can hit a schedule. I can consistently post. I can consistently create good work. Right? Because that's the reason, in my opinion, why you should hire a professional. So it's got nothing to do with how good the work is. The difference is the consistency on the quality of work. Because, to be honest, anyone can fluke a good video once, as in, I got a video that went viral, right? We can, I'm sure, get into vanity metrics and etc. as well. But like, one person can get a viral video on TikTok with their phone. There was a cat involved. There was a funny dance. There was a lip sync. They said something witty. They said something intelligent. Oh, cool. The audience ate it up. Fantastic. But can you repeat that? Can you consistently get good views? And the reason why I'm not using numbers is because your good view metric will change upon your size of audience, right? To someone who's expecting to get a couple of hundred, them getting a video with 10 or even 1 or 2,000 views is a good video. But if you're used to getting consistently 2,000 to 3,000 views per video, you're then going to only expect a video that gets beyond that, 5, 10, 15,000, to be a good video for you. And that's why this number yard thing is so subjective, and it comes down to size of audience, it comes down to how long you've been creating content. There's loads of other metrics that we can talk about. But why does likes, comments, shares, etc. not matter as much as most people think? Because traditionally, right, if you've got loads of thousands of views, that could actually hurt your business, right? That could actually be, because if it's the wrong set of people, that's not what you want, right?
Yeah, totally. At the end of the day, every business has an ideal client profile. We're all going after a very specific person, a title, a professional, and in some cases, you don't really need a viral $1 million or million view video if you're going after a very niche audience on LinkedIn. And so again, kind of leaning back to like working with a professional, like the professionals know what platforms to reach what audience. Like LinkedIn as an example, that's where decision makers are. That's where corporate marketers are. That's where entrepreneurs are. And so if you're a service provider that works with business owners, you're going to want to promote on LinkedIn because that's where the attention is. So it goes back to kind of the strategy, like the platform strategy and what kind of business you are at the end of the day, because you may not need a bunch of views if you are going after a very specific type of business or business owner. You want to make sure you get the right views and you get in front of the right person at the right time. And sometimes we can get caught up in vanity metrics, right? Like you could throw a video on a Facebook ad, get 20,000 views, but nothing really happens, right? So it also comes down to the objective, right? Is the objective to get more eyeballs on the brand, to grow the page, or is it just direct sales and leads? So it just depends, right?
And as I say, I think something which a lot of, I guess in some ways, a larger set of audiences or a larger skill set in regards to businesses will actually do both simultaneously, because there's arguments and there's things that you can do that are value, like, you having a 1 million view video is good clout for you, right? It is a good sales pitch, right? Or if you've got something that's gone viral, or how to create something that's viral, right? I was asked at the end of a talk a couple of months ago, what's the golden content you can create, Colton, to generate your work? I said, well, firstly, what's your objective? Secondly, how are you creating content? Thirdly, what do you want it to do? And to be honest, fourthly, how much money have you got? Because if you want something to get 1 million views, the best and easiest way is to give Facebook about £1,000, dollars, etc. plus, and it will get 1 million on short form content. There you go. That's how. You just do an ad that sits in short form. You spend a significant amount of money on an ad to push it originally, and then the algorithm will take it from there. There you go. Fantastic. You've got 1 million. What does that do for your business? What's the return on investment of that 1,000? That's down to the content. That's down to how's it placed, who is targeted, etc. I mean, what we're talking about here when we talk about decision makers is, are you trying to catch them in work mode, e.g. on LinkedIn, right? If most people on LinkedIn are going to be doing it during their work hours, so their thought process is going to be around work, right? So they're looking for a consumer. So another strategy that we've used in the past and works quite well for us as well is actually creating content that sits on those other platforms, the Instagrams, the Facebook, the TikToks of the world, and actually hits, maybe their children, maybe them when they're not in work mode, right? Because attention is attention, right? If you can still add value to them because they're maybe not on LinkedIn, because you're only really going to attack those people if they're on work mode, because that's the only time they're going to be on the website, right? So you have to hit them in that 8-hour window. But this is also kind of a metric about why you should spread your content around as much as possible, because it only takes one to go viral for you to hit the right people or the right person at the right time, right? And that's why I think vanity metrics should be looked at within reason, but actually they're not the be-all and end-all, because the amount of what we would call lurkers that I've had work with us just because they've lurked or seen, maybe they haven't liked a comment, maybe they haven't actually dropped a comment or liked or etc. or done one of those vanity metric related things on social media. That doesn't mean they haven't watched the video. That doesn't mean they haven't seen the video. That doesn't mean I haven't still gained the pressure on the market of me doing social media. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. Most business owners right now are in two boats. Option A, they understand that they need to apply more pressure to the market so that they are more likely to be able to grow and continually get work. Or they're going into a scarcity scared mindset around, oh my God, this looks terrifying. Let's just close down. Let's just go back to base. But it does open up a question, because we're both abundance. We're both push. Let's keep going. no matter what, yeah, look at your costs. Yeah, make sure you're getting good return on ROI, and make sure you believe in the system that you're producing and creating the content. And if you need to take on that editing yourself as a professional video editor, then do, right? But how would you help someone, or how would you, if someone came to you and said, look, I'm really worried about my business, really worried about the future of it. I don't know I don't know what to do. I'm withdrawing everything. I'm pulling everything back. I'm scared. What would you say to them?
Yeah. No, it's a great question, Carlton. I think at the end of the day, you have two choices. You can either play offense and be in the arena and put yourself out there and try to make something happen, or you could crumble and just hope something happens. And so the way I look at creating content and content creation is you're playing offense. You're taking the initiative to go into the marketplace, to educate buyers, to help someone, to provide value. And you should be rewarded for taking that jump, for taking that initiative over someone who just expects leads to just land on their lap without putting their self out there. And so if you're not out, if you're not online, if your customers can't see you, you just don't exist. And so I think there's more to be lost, or there's more risk that you take on as a business owner when you don't play in the arena, when you choose to neglect social media, when you believe that TikTok isn't a worthwhile investment or platform for attention, when you lead with no, or when you start with no, you're playing defense. And the people who win on these platforms are the people who take that initiative and play offense. And those are the people who get ahead. Those are the people that get the attention. Those are the people that win at the end of the day. So it's just about playing offense and not being scared and getting into the arena.
I mean, this kind of opens up another question, which I'm aware of time, so I think we'll wrap up soon. But something I wanted to ask you about was this kind of, we saw Chat AI and other AI software is available, but like Chat AI specifically, or ChatGPT, excuse me, is this kind of like, there's a lot of copywriters in the world who went, I'm done, right? My job has been taken by a computer. And I disagreed, right? And I think it's a tool like anything else, and it can be used as a tool, right? But there's also like AI clip editors, there's AI plugins for Premiere and other such things that I'm personally using. And I wanted to ask you about, what role do you feel specifically AI as a concept? Because there's been like this shift from what I've seen, at least in the video market. Those who are willing to say, fantastic, this computer is going to do the grunt work for me now. I don't have to do the grunt work. Great, fantastic, that's wonderful, thank you very much. And then other people who have gone, well, oh no, it's not as human, so it can't be as good, or etc. Right? Where do you sit on it? Do you think it's the end of like percentually, like maybe copywriters from a ChatGPT point of view, or podcast editors from etc. The AI, there's lots, but the one I use is AutoPod nice. to cut that do the basic editing on podcasts. Like, where do you sit? Should people be scared? Is the world over as we know it, or is it actually just this is how technology has moved forward?
It's a good question. Right now, Carlton, we're seeing this in the SAG union strike here in LA. The Writers Guild, the Screen Actors Guild. A big reason why they're fighting is because of AI. Like, their jobs are at risk for AI. And I could see the concern about AI, but in the context of our industry, I think AI is going to be an extremely helpful tool for us. You still need someone to put in input in ChatGPT. It's not like ChatGPT is its own living and breathing organism that takes jobs from people. And so I think AI is a tool for the people that know how to use it right. I still think it's a little bit early, and it still has a lot to go. And I think the people that will be employed are the people who adapt and learn how to use these AI tools, because AI is just a tool. It's a tool that helps us do our job better. It's a tool that helps our job do our job faster and quicker and more efficiently. And so there will be demand, I believe, for humans who know how to use AI. It sounds weird, but I think that is the future. There's going to be humans that are using AI to maybe do what it took a couple of people to do, but now it's just one really good person who knows how to use AI really well. And so we're seeing this in like video editing, right? I'm sure you've played around with a lot of AI video editors, and they're okay, right? Like I could see the value in it, but I think we still have a long way to go where it's going to replace the human touch of storytelling, of editing, right? So that's my thoughts there.
I think it depends on understanding what you're using it for, right? Like we use ops clips to create a lot of the clips from the podcast. We use it to create lots of other clips from other sources. And, for me, it's about saying, okay, right, so I'm going to use AI to generate this content. Okay, fantastic, right? I'm now got this availability of time again, right? Because I've gone from a world where I have to manually cut these clips. I have to manually chop out the bits I like in the podcast that I think are really good and cool. No, I don't need to do that anymore, right? Or even just the basic editing on the podcast. I still go through the podcast and I still tweak it and tune it and make sure that it's what I expect and good. But something that would take me an hour now takes me 14 seconds, right? It's a game changer in some ways. What I'm finding really interesting is there is a large percentage of, I would say probably more traditional video production companies that are pushing back against the concept of using it because of the human touch doesn't happen. But it's only meant to be used how the tool is designed to be used, e.g. do the grunt work. Do you enjoy cutting clips? I don't, personally. No, not something I spend my life going, yay, I would much rather be creating something longer form or something more exciting or filming more content or creating something that actually takes me skill, right? Not just let's find the golden nuggets in this conversation that actually, for the Ops Clips' case, actually does a better job than I could in regards to the amount of time I'm willing to invest in doing it. Yes, I could create the clips it creates for me, but it does it simultaneously to me creating something else, which becomes incredibly good and incredibly valuable, and that's the point. The point, and this kind of leans back to leverage. How are you leveraging technology? How are you leveraging your time? How are you leveraging your network? How are you leveraging what you do, right? And businesses that I think are going to be at the forefront and what we're going to enter soon is the value stage of content creation, because the content creation as a whole will become monopolized. So if you're just there to create content creation, you'll be a race to the bottom. You'll be the cheapest
100%.
person who can do it, which, spoiler alert, I'm not into that game. No thanks. If you are, fair enough, you do you. But that's not me, right? The difference, as you've kind of alluded to with the AI thing, is actually you're going to be hired because you know how to leverage these AI tools along with him simultaneous. Like, you're actually the client's ear to, hey, by the way, this thing has just come out. Like, for example, I'm sure you do as well. Meta has just launched, as of yesterday at the time of recording, it will be probably about 6 weeks ago by the time this comes out, but a For You page for Facebook. Hasn't been launched on Facebook yet, right? But it is coming, and the only reason why I know that is because I spend my life consuming social media. I can tell you more that happens in social media than actually happens in actual news, right? Because it's in tune with my job. But that's what I'm saying. You'll be hired because of the information and the new approach or the new skill or the new thing.
Correct.
And the new idea or the new AI skill or the new or in combination with all these other things, the overarching strategy is actually more profitable and more valuable to a business than what camera did you shoot it on? What lens did you use? What light did you... All of these traditional video production things that me and you could probably talk about until the cows come home because we're camera nerds, really, at our heart. But that doesn't matter from a business context, really. It doesn't. What a business wants to know is, if I pay you $1,000, £1,000, £1,000, whatever it is, does it get me 1,500 in a year? Right? That's the reality. Now, can we articulate that, and how do we articulate that, and how do we actually save them time to help them understand that that's what we're doing, right? Helping them understand how to use AI could be one of them, right? Something which I'm starting to talk about openly now is how we're using AI to scale those clips, to scale what we're doing. Because I've now been able to go from, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff was on my plate to do for a long time, creating those longer form behind the scenes videos that we're doing for YouTube at the moment. They've been on my plate to do for a long time. I haven't had the available time until I started tuning the other clips towards AI because it frees up my editing time and frees up what I can spend a lot of my time doing. But it also opens up another question, which I'm going to end the show on, which is about 6 months ago, I decided to say, okay, Colin, you're creating lots of content, you've created lots of content, but you're also doing this simultaneously with like traditional marketing, which is going and talking to people physically, right? but that's very time consuming. Consider what your overarching strategy is to actually articulate and get customers, which is kind of full circle in this entire conversation. But for those who are maybe listening, what would you say to people who are, they're concerned about the economy, right? Would you suggest that they change their strategy? Would you suggest that they go back traditional? Would you suggest they take on video? What would you suggest as a top end strategic conversation? This is what you should do. This is what's likely to help you win in the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Yeah, a great question. I think, a lot of people are just waving the white flag right now. They're giving up. They've accepted that the economy is bad. Therefore, they've already determined in their heads that there's no business, there's nobody that needs help. And those are the people that I think aren't going to win, period. The people that believe that even though it's a challenging time, they can still go out and help people. They believe that their solution is still valuable and that people still want it, even if it's a down economy. The people that continue to show up day in, day out on social media, those are the people that are going to win. The people that just continue to put the effort and truly believe that there are people that still need help out there, those are the people that are going to win. When you start to become this mindset of like, oh, it's a bad economy, there's no jobs, there's no clients, you've already lost. You have it really is a mindset game where you just believe that there's now more demand for your product and service because businesses have thrown in the towel. Businesses believe that there's no opportunity out there. And for the right entrepreneur, this is actually prime time to go out there and grow your business because so many people need help, right? So it's just altering your perspective of like, now there is a greater need for what I do because of the current state and believing that.
And I mean, this is what I kind of alluded to when I said for a long time about like pure blood entrepreneurs, right? Like if you're a pure blood entrepreneur, what I would describe as a pure blood entrepreneur, you're excited by this. You're like, yes, this is game time, right? This is where I can't be complacent. This is where I can't be comfortable, right? This is where I've got to find AI and find new ways to break down barriers that I otherwise had that limited what I could do, right? And that's where innovation comes from, right? I was in a conversation that I alluded to earlier, and her entire her entire businesses are completely different because of the pandemic, and we haven't even touched on the pandemic today, but her entire business model is completely different now after the pandemic, in the same way yours and I's probably is as well. Because, me specifically, I know for a fact it is because I wouldn't have a coaching offer otherwise, because people asked me during the pandemic, we were like, we need to still articulate ourselves, we still need to create content, you're doing it, how? Right? Like, we're literally not allowed to leave our homes, but you're still able to be really visible. How? Right? So I created an offer that basically said, look, this is my mindset, this is how I run, this is how I work, and this is how I create confidence in the market. That's what we're talking about here. We're creating confidence in the market that you can actually do what you say you're going to do. But also, just to reiterate on the point you made briefly, this is exactly the time where you should try different things. This is exactly the time where you need to think outside the box and actually look at what people are doing through actions, not what they tell you. Because if they are saying, you should do video, and they're not doing video, do they really believe it? Right? Would be what I would leave the audience with to consider, right? But if the person that is doing video, that's selling you, I'm using video as an example, do the same with any service you buy, right? But if those people aren't doing what they say they're going to do, and aren't doing what they preach, that's a red flag for me personally, and it's something that's like, okay, why? What's the issue here, right? Maybe they've been quiet on social media. Okay, why have they been quiet on social media, right? Because actually you have no excuse. If you own all the kit, you should be more dominant than your clients because you don't have the same barriers to entry that they do, right? We all own probably about £10,000 up to £100,000 worth of video kit. So surely we should be a video powerhouse then by proxy, right? But for those who've really enjoyed the conversation, really enjoyed your takes, where's best for them to connect with you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they continue this conversation outside of this piece of content, my friend?
Yeah, thanks, Carlton. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there, as I know Carlton is too. Mateo Elvira. I'm also on TikTok, Elvira Media, ELVIRA MEDIA. Catch me on all major social media platforms. I'm a huge advocate for all platforms, and LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of my time, but TikTok is also a really special place too.
Fantastic. And for those who have taken this conversation and now want to put some action out there into the world, they want to do something. Final piece of advice, final thing to leave the audience with. What should they do?
Yeah. A quote that sticks out to me is done is better than perfect. When you're first starting off, so many people are obsessed with how it looks, wanting to be perfect. And those are things that are just going to create barriers for you to push content. If you're not pushing content, you don't exist. Please, when you're just getting started, push content. Just get it out there. Don't think about it too much. Don't obsess over being perfect. The most important part is pushing it out in volume and learning from that process, and not letting anything affect you or getting your insecurities caught up with the video. You just have to push the content out. Done is always going to be better than perfect, because the people who are trying to create that perfect video, it might not even be posted because it just doesn't fit their standards. So again, a video is only as good as it gets seen if it gets posted. So please don't overthink it. Just get your word out there.
Thanks so much for coming back, ladies and gents. I hope you took value from this conversation. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode that's going to be exciting. We're going to be talking to someone new about how you can improve the likelihood that you continue to grow regardless of what happens with the economy, because we're going to be creating that demand instead of serving it. So thank you ever so much for coming back and joining me once again. If you're new to the channel, why not subscribe? You don't want to miss next week, and I'll see you very, very soon.